The Commonwealth of Dominica, a policy framework for socio-economic transformation of conditions of economic relations for a 10-year period, 2026 to 2036. 1. The context is regenerative creativity. In the history of Dominica, colonialism has warped the creativity of those selected persons who, in the 19th and 20th century, had managed to carve a niche on the periphery of global capitalism. As the slave population freed itself from the subservient role of non-remunerative creators of wealth, measures were implemented to avoid this major part of the population from a profitable participatory role in global capitalism. This was mainly done through the control of the ownership of land resources and the reduction of the former wealth creators to wage earners and supplemental subsistence living. This pattern of economic relations resulted in persistent challenges, persistent poverty, to the larger proportion of humans living on this island in the last 2 centuries. On the surface, these challenges appear in inappropriate structures of economic concentration, market vulnerability, and income insufficiency. But beneath these, the real challenges were the social and cultural, nay, legal, barriers that prevented the majority of folks from exploring their own creativity within a culture that would pay them dividends for doing exactly that. This cultural vision of development, 2026 to 2036, sets out a coherent 10-year policy framework of built-in support to the population, particularly the young population, who have had no previous experiences with indigenous development. The purpose is to co-opt the drivers of diversification, inclusiveness, and social economic resilience into a culture and a goal for personal achievements through human creativity. But before this strategy can get to the objective of prioritizing productive sectors that will generate domestic value, of strengthening food and energy security, of expanding knowledge-based expertise, and of doing all these wonderful national goals, before it can get to that, the strategy must first demonstrate a position that sees the majority of the population as wealth creators, and by that measure, as the inevitable, unavoidable beneficiaries and inheritors of domestic value. 2. The vision statement. Everyone has the capacity to create something within their possession which they can sell to the rest of the world. This vision statement expresses the concept of regenerative creativity. Regenerative creativity is an inventive, mindset-driven approach that goes beyond sustainability to actively heal, renew, and improve social and ecological systems to the benefit of the individuals participating. This strategy is built on the application of creative thinking in economic work design and social problem solving, with the sole purpose of fostering resilience and vitality at the level of individuals and the community at large. In the current economic thinking in Dominica, most proponents are predisposed towards rushing to fix the macro-institutional failures of the recent past. However, There is one pillar of development that preceded this colonial institutional legacy. It is the one item that can become the base for popular innovation and creativity. It is the use of biomimicry. Most innovations have their origin in the observation and mimicking of biological systems, the most famous of which is the creation of Velcro, which uses the hook and loop system copied from nature to allow for a strong temporary bonding between two different materials. You can say that civilization is where it is today on account of 2.4 million years of humankind using nature's R&D to solve human challenges. Biomimicry has been successful because it continuously moves beyond the simple imitation of form to become a model, measure, and mentor that encourages the shift from extractive resource practices to life-centric regenerative ones. It creates with rather than consumes the natural resources of the island. We do not deny the institutional objectives of sustainability, resilience, and diversity with its aims at minimizing socioeconomic damage. However, it is regenerative creativity driven by biomimicry that built wealth among the free slave population of Dominica and those in the rest of the Caribbean. This is the essence of the culture they used to create designs where every part provided a positive value to their surrounding ecosystems. We often speak of self-reliance and resilience as if these are institutional attributes. They are not. They are cultural attributes gleaned from the biomimicry edict that builds capacity first within the individual and then collectively within the community. 3. The guiding principles. It's important for us to note that our guiding principles are built on the only legacy that slavery and colonialism failed to erase within the majority of the population of Dominica. British colonialism did leave the Dominican people with a host of institutions, which in the post-independence era they have been called upon to reform some, modify some, reject some, and replace some. We understand that, but it is a mistake to believe that the institutional change or reform is where we should start our vision for new indigenous development. The history of building society and economy by the former enslaved in the Caribbean islands is a history that is filled with cultural foundations from the memory of their desire to own the future. In the most significant revolution in our region, the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint Louverture failed to get the newly freed men to return to the plantation form of production that had made Saint-Domingue such a beacon of wealth. His motivation to do so was founded in his economic policies known as corporalisme agraire, the institutional representation of which was anathema to the freedom of the black population. The figure 4 on the screen is an artist's expression of how Haitian slaves must have viewed the economic relations that produced so much wealth in pre-revolutionary Saint-Domingue. However, the former slaves of Haiti recognized that establishing these institutions of plantation were not compatible with maintaining their newly won freedom. They were driven by a culture that demanded that they build resilience within themselves. Their development path sought to reestablish their culture first on an individual basis by owning their own land and focusing on subsistence farming to ensure their personal independence. Similarly, we have to ensure that our policy framework reflects upfront a new vision grounded in the hopes and aspirations of the majority of people of Dominica. Our policy is therefore grounded in the following principles. 1. Value creation, the commodification of what individuals create and bring to market. B. Resilience, building an economic future that reinforces the individual's claim to the future. 3. Equity and inclusion, increasing internal income generating trade among the members of society. 4. Environmental stewardship, providing financial support to utilize our natural capital in a protected and productive way as a cultural asset. And 5. Governance and social cohesion, transparent, responsible institutions that harness the creativity of the innovators in society. 4. The strategic pillars of regenerative growth. Pillar number 1, a development fund to finance creativity and innovation. The premise that everyone has the capacity to create something that he or she can sell to the rest of the world makes it imperative that there be an accessible source of funding to develop and expand the ideas that are value laden. Thus, one of the first tasks of this vision is to assemble a Creativity Facilitation Fund, CFF, financed through development bonds floated by the state with strong transparency conditions. Buyers for these bonds can be sourced from the Dominican diaspora, international non-profit organizations, worldwide philanthropists, church-based development initiatives, the Vatican Bank, and Emirati participation, among others. A CFF capitalized at about $3 billion will be used to provide critical financial support to initiatives such as an indigenous patent repository for the country, training participants in the presentation of their wealth creating ideas, a social investment fund to protect investment in human resource development through training, the delivery of social services, etc., in country region based sources of equity and guaranteed funds for enterprise expansion and development, such as a guarantee endowment fund, through rural industry support fund, and through local area creativity concept plans. The CFF of Pillar 1 will be instrumental in creating a center for worldwide search of development innovations within specified categories that appear to be attracting the skills and motivation of Dominican youth. These will include support to value added in agricultural crops, produced or partially processed, musical instruments, the production of them, talent, talent development, and enterprise-based formation. Mechanical engineering, process innovations of structural components based on local supplies such as pumice. Freshwater innovations, conservation, production, bottling, shipping, regional market of our freshwater resources, and medicinal extracts, indigenous knowledge of nature-based wellness products. Pillar 2, increasing capital flows and boosting domestic demand in all emerging economic sectors. Let us look at three of them. Agriculture. The system proposes to establish a multi-sectoral commission for agriculture. This commission will make agriculture the business concern of everyone, from reducing toxic substance uses in the production of food supplies, to protecting watersheds, to reducing landslide occurrences, to rural road maintenance initiatives, and also to improving forest cover. It will promote the supporting of grassroots organizations to gain new trade advantages from sustainable farming. And it will make investable funds available through crop producers organizations such as the root crop growers organization, the vegetable producers organizations. That way, encouraging stronger integrated links among individual producers so that they can achieve scale of output. Tourism. Creating a benefit profile for a broad-based participation of stakeholders in tourism services. The opportunity should be made to access capital for innovation made available to special interest groups such as tour guides, bus and taxi owners, and guest house owners. Local area tourism assist plans for tourism development in individual communities and the Carib territory, and a trade vision with the new intellectual property of sustainable living, opening up possibilities for centers of sustainable living for residents and visitors. Health and wellness. Building a consensus on the public policy for health, which encompasses multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary considerations, and which will promote the continued involvement of the population as a whole and its communities. Developing new cadres of health workers within the scope of innovation and local community knowledge base, and imparting new skills to current health workers, enabling them to respond to the changing epidemiological situations which are related mainly to lifestyle and health behaviors of the local population. Greater emphasis should be placed on the attainment of personal skills based on self-discipline and societal values. Forging of alliances with traditional and non-traditional stakeholders across the health and wellness sectors in a coordinated effort supported by the media. Pillar number 3. This pillar is called State Budgeting and Local Area Development. The principle is to create a significant shift in the paradigm that informs public sector investment program, the PSIP. Performance budgeting is what we call it, introduces the opportunity to recognize and incorporate creativity into the management of public resources that will contribute to achieving these goals. Sharing responsibility at the central and local level for economic planning and budgeting, and abandoning the ideas such as poverty reduction strategy papers and replacing them with the active, productive, fungible local area creativity concept plans. The graph on the screen is meant to demonstrate the sharing of responsibility for economic planning and the budget, setting the stage for accountability by converting fiscal policy objectives into a code of financial management practices, and sharing information with respect to the policy of cost risk trade offs at the operational level with financial agencies and with accounting officers who are responsible for fiscal management, such as permanent secretaries. Pillar 4, building out economic measures from the Creativity Initiative. Among the direct macroeconomic benefits of this approach are the following: the imparting of a sense of direction, coherence, and predictability to the national development effort based on supporting local creativity, the ability to create a more transparent base to facilitate and coordinate external support to development projects, no more disconnect from local reality, and the possibility to transplant the creativity culture into improving the overall management of the public sector investment program. B. Strengthening the enabling environment for expansion of the private sector initiatives. We can create new information-based services sectors that are propelled by the technology-savvy youth who are eager to support a more comprehensive approach to national planning of local initiatives. These are initiatives that either they are bringing to the table or they are aware of through their own research of what is going on and what is possible in the rest of the world. C. Establishing a guarantee endowment fund, again supported by the CFF. This fund can target marginal communities for enterprise development, such as the Carib territory, by promoting culture as an art, a business, and a trading identity, by targeting the Carib community whose craft work is part of the country's nature island image, establishing the basis to protect Carib art under the intellectual property rights provisions of our laws, while at the same time promoting linkages between ecotourism sites, local hospitality centers, and local agricultural and agro-processing capacities. Developing the scope to create a workable model of local area development committee targeting and fulfilling the demands coming through local creativity. For example, we can consolidate the hamlet development committees within the Carib Council into a local development committee to respond to the expressed needs of the Carib territory. 5. Economic recovery through economic inclusion. Part of the process of changing our worldview is that we have to reflect how we are regrouping concepts and ideas. Regenerative creativity turns the strategy for macroeconomic stability into a must win game. The debate is not how we adjust physical expenditures to meet budget limitations, but what we do to ensure such adjustments have a positive effect on what people are doing to promote economic growth. It is that connection to the local level that is urgently needed. This means that the government's recovery program must demonstrate how it will manage its short term cash obligations to reduce the fiscal deficit, while at the same time stimulating domestic production, consumption, and trade, and maintaining pro growth social and economic investments through extra budgetary sources of funding. Planting that simple seed of regenerative creativity within communities and within the individuals will do the trick. Economic growth measured by GDP numbers will not combat economic exclusion. For that, we have to invest in quality training in the following skills: construction skills, agricultural support skills, community based creative extension services, marketing and farm management support, etc., personal service skills, like in tourism, performance art skills, music, culture, art, and information technology skills. But we need to do all of this within the umbrage of regenerative creativity. The drive for creativity at a local level will force the authorities to train community development officers to impart to village councils, community groups, women's groups, and other individuals the information and skills needed to put together their own financing packages for their project ideas, inclusive of the Rural Industry Support Fund. Building on the investment initiatives identified by local development communities, such as the Southeast Tourism Development Community, will comprise local area private sector members, civil organizations, and local government in local area planning. We will also support grants for capital formation expenditures in response to local areas, city and town councils, Caribbean Council, Village Council, local area initiatives to attract investments into their area. Pillar 6: Building a sustainable energy profile. The energy profile of Dominica plays out in more forms than simply the generation of electricity, whether by hydro, wind powered, or geothermal. Dominica has within its citizen reach the basic capacity to create a reliable, affordable, and environmentally safe electrical engineering generation capacity to address its productive needs. What continues to prevent the realization of a sensible approach to our energy profile is the disconnect between the desires of central planners and the willingness of the local population to respond appropriately. We must understand the weakness in the current energy profile in Dominica as it is expressed in the shrinking range of opportunities available to operators in the agricultural sectors to add value to what they're doing so as to make living from their production feasible. We see this in the declining capacity of social services in the health and education sector to deliver an empowering capacity to local initiatives. And we find this in the failure at the national level to effectively engage the population in addressing issues such as climate resilience, environmental management, and preserving ecosystem services. There are various measures to consolidate a sustainable energy profile. Among them, we can mention promoting equity in energy resource mobilization by focusing on creating regional balance in community resources by utilizing a facility and a mechanism for equalizing grants to different local communities. Making a sustainable energy profile everybody's business. That is providing a mechanism for greater involvement of citizens in both designing and forecasting a viable energy base in their own communities, and making the private sector a critical stakeholder. This can be done by introducing an award system for recognizing innovative ideas emerging from our own private sector enterprises, giving incentives to private sector management to make decisions within a framework that allows their staff to act creatively and in a timely manner. 5. What should a new vision like this achieve? There are 5 factors through which a truly new vision of economy and society can determine the major social and economic changes possible in the Dominican context. First, fiscal capacity. Fiscal capacity is closely related to financial capacity. Success in bringing additional financial resources through a Creativity Facilitation Fund (CFF) will reduce the disconnect between the growing inability of government to finance its fiscal deficit and the empowering of initiatives at a more decentralized level that can create wealth and spur growth. Debt management. The treatment of national debt obligations, which overhang public sector initiatives in social and economic investment, has the ability to be reduced in its impact on the economic well-being of individuals within the society. Social sector expenditures. The berth for social sector expenditures is broadened to finance local area development plans that empower local creative productivity. Export growth. The potential of exports to stimulate growth means that local enterprises can truly look beyond their immediate market and import substitution measures towards becoming more competitive in the sub-regional, regional, and world markets. This potential is true particularly for our manufacturing, our tourism, and our agricultural sectors. And 5. Vulnerability. The high level of vulnerability of sectors agriculture and tourism, housing, enterprises, and individuals in Dominica to external shocks has been established as part of living in the island of Dominica. What happens now is that resilience now has a strong local survival context, meaning that information systems, mapping for landslide, storm surge, coastal risk, etc., and recovery measures and resilience building will all have strong local roots that allow investors in tourism, agriculture, and housing to select sites, collaborate with local actors, introduce technology, manage material and systems, all to the benefit of the wider community. 6. Conclusion. The Dominican reality is that the economy will only become healthy when the measures to turn around the economy impact positively not only on the balance sheet of the government, but also on the balance sheet of private businesses and the balance sheet of householders. Concomitant with the initiatives that we have prescribed here is the need to empower local community groups to not only participate in discussions about development, but also to develop and implement local area plans funded through alternative budgetary sources such as the CFF. With increased involvement of other stakeholders in the development planning process, we should gradually witness a significant progress in changing the culture of development in Dominica. Thank you.